Hello everyone! It is I, the man, the myth, the mustache, Tim here, and I want to welcome you to part 15 of What If Deku Was Trained by Stain. Now, there's not much of an intro here, so let's just get right into the story, shall we? Shallow. It was a voice of utter disappointment from the villain, whose knife was raised as she assessed the amount of blood she had gathered from the cut inflicted upon Uraraka. You should not have got her in the first place. Just who are you? Asui snarled. I'm Toga. Toga's voice was muffled due to the gear that she was wearing. However, both of the students did not miss the dangerous glint in her eye when she told them how they were cute. Pointing her knives to the two, Toga mentioned their names, which added to the fear and increasing feelings of danger. The exchange of lines between the three continued, but ended with Toga successfully escaping with having drawn blood from Uraraka, which was why the zero-gravity heroine was sitting on the ground when Midoriya and the others arrived. From a distance, Toga saw Midoriya and blushed at the sight of him. He noticed the wound on his classmate's arm, but was relieved when it wasn't too serious. When Uraraka declared that she wanted to run after the villain, she was abruptly stopped by Asui, who told her that engaging in an unnecessary fight wouldn't be advisable, since combat engagement was for self-defense only. I'm just glad both of you are okay. And it crossed Midoriya's mind to stick with them on their way to the camp. Let's all join together and head back to the camp. Right now we are protecting Kacchan as we proceed. While the idea of sticking together in greater numbers was calming, this momentary relief was shattered when Asui spoke her concern. Midoriya, I thought you and the others were with Bakugo. Everyone turned their heads when the realization dawned on them, for Bakugo wasn't in the circle. Tokoyami was missing too. Midoriya felt chills down his spine as it seemed to be a failure against him. He failed to keep both of his classmates safe, particularly Bakugo, who happened to be the league's target for tonight. Are you perhaps looking for something? It was a voice laced with utmost mockery, intended to rile them up. The villain was indeed successful, especially when he revealed what seemed to be two marbles resting upon his palm. Perhaps the boy who's currently in my hand, along with the other? Give him back! Midoriya shouted, which was all he could do because the fight from Muscular had claimed the last of his strength. His mind was going a little blank from the injuries he had sustained, but he kept convincing himself to move or lose his classmates at the hand of the villains. Midoriya's protest went unheard as the villain continued with his monologue, playing with the marbles as he did. Such talent is wasted in the undeserving hero society. A smirk crossed the villain's face as he stopped toying with the marbles, which contained Bakugo and Tokoyami. Give him back! Give him back, the villain repeated, albeit full of mockery once more. Strange. Have you hero wannabes forgotten that Bakugo doesn't belong to anyone? However, his line started to have a mixture of irritation when he continued. The kid doesn't belong to anyone, you egoist. Todoroki decided to take action as he aimed an ice attack to immobilize the villain. Despite this attempt, the villain seemed to have predicted the onslaught and successfully evaded it. He then proceeded with his point on why Bakugo would be in the hands of the villains tonight. A path that doesn't only belong to such false ideals of heroism and fanatical values. Do you know? There was a momentary pause as he landed on a tree farther from where he just stood. The society keeps pushing such stupid values onto them, things that aren't befitting of the ones he shows, and his talent. Although I must admit, the other kid named Tokoyami will also be of good use to the League. Todoroki remained pensive as he wondered how the villain managed to snatch up both of his classmates without emitting any noise. Admittedly, Midoriya pondered the same thing as he glanced towards Todoroki with a stare, to hopefully get his silent plea across. Thankfully it worked. Todoroki repeated the attempt he did earlier, only this time the area it covered was larger, hoping that the ice would come in contact with the villain, effectively freezing him, and allowing Midoriya to retrieve both of their classmates. Dread traveled up Midoriya's spine as the next words echoed from the villain. Vanguard Action Squad! The target is secured. Head to the retrieval point in the next 5 minutes. The show has finally come to a close. Come to a close, Todoroki repeated. Midoriya didn't care as he yelled in protest to the events that escalated. Immediately, the two heroes in training ran after the villain, while some of the faraway villains conversed on how they were able to succeed. Hey, Dobby, did you hear that? Mr. Compress succeeded. I thought I'd get sleepy with how slow he acted. However, the man whom the other one regarded as Dobby just sighed in disagreement with the claim. Don't say he did such a good job. The conversation went on between the two regarding the events that transpired tonight, with Dobby's slightly disappointed tone about the gas that was cleared. Unbeknownst to them, from the bush they had passed, was the shivering Aoyama from Class 1A, while two of his peers laid unconscious at the ground. Aoyama, who had heard the exchange between the villains, felt elated, for it meant that his peers were fighting. But it came crashing down when he realized his eyes met Dobby's, prompting the villain to walk towards his hiding area. However, he was interrupted upon his companion's inquiry as to why the Nomu wasn't called during tonight's mission. Dobby replied that for tonight's occasion, it probably killed a person already, and so he would summon it later. Meanwhile, Mr. Compress, who had Bakugo and Tokoyami in his possession, was jumping through the trees, being chased after by Midoriya's group. "They keep getting farther away," Midoriya thought in desperation as he ran after the villain. However, that was when Midoriya got an idea. "Uraraka, make us float. And Asui, take us as far as you can with your tongue." And then Midoriya wasted no time in giving the next instructions toward his classmates. He might have busted his bones, but his mind still functioned well. "We can do this," he told himself, shutting away any other thoughts as he focused everything on the retrieval of Tokoyami and Bakugo. "Shoji, use your arms to change your trajectory while we're up. Uraraka has to make sure she will keep an eye on the distance to ensure proper timing of the release." While Shoji was able to figure out they were going to follow the concept of a human bullet, Uraraka was quick to question Midoriya's current state during the chase. "Deku, are you sure you can still move with the number of injuries you've sustained?" "It won't be a wonder if you lose consciousness in the middle of this, Midoriya," Todoroki added. So he suggested that Midoriya stay behind, and let the rest of them do the chasing. Nevertheless, his suggestion was abruptly cut with the hellfire determination that Midoriya had. "I don't feel the pain right now. I can still move, so hurry up!" And so they commenced the human bullet, using Uraraka's touch, with Asui simultaneously wrapping her tongue around Shoji, Todoroki, and Midoriya. "Make sure you save those two," Asui encouraged, finally throwing them into the air with all the force she could muster. At the Vanguard Action Squad's retrieval point, Toga was explaining how she only had caught a person's blood during the whole search. Mr. Compress fell from the trees, which surprised the other villains, as 3 students stood on his back. To which Toga took delight, because one of them was the one with whom she was interested in. "Give us Tokoyami and Kacchan!" "Mister, get out of the way," Dobby, the villain whose face had seemed to be Stitch, warned. Mr. Compress complied as he got himself out of the way before Dobby aimed his arms towards the children. Bluish flames came towards them, an attack they didn't anticipate, which both Todoroki and Shoji barely dodged. Midoriya, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky, as the flames hit his arm, which caused him to scream in pain. Toga, with her hype spirit, charged at Midoriya while she pinned him down and introduced herself. A knife was pointed at him, which was nothing new to Midoriya, as he had had his fair share of experiences, but the dread was still there as the knife was near his neck. "You'll look lovelier if you were to bleed more, Midoriya." She seemed pleased as she took the knife to stab him, but suddenly it was thrown into the ground as Shoji managed to grab her just in time. Meanwhile, Mr. Compress had emerged once more as he made his way towards Dobby, who then asked where Bakugo was. It was most surprising to feel nothing when Mr. Compress patted the pockets of his coat. "Midoriya, Todoroki, we're now retreating," Shoji exclaimed. A smile of victory was on his face as he drew out the marbles that Mr. Compress had owned just a while ago. When Mr. Compress turned around, he found it fascinating. He even complimented how Shoji's quirk worked splendidly and had successfully retrieved Bakugo. Little did they know it was all for naught when Dobby walked ahead. "Move. I'm gonna catch..." However, he was cut off when Mr. Compress moved his hands down as he watched the would-be heroes run away. The villains were then greeted by a Nomu and Kurogiri, the Warp Gate villain. "The 5-minute mark is up," he casually said, as if the fear that crossed upon their faces of the 3 students was non-existent. "Let's go." He announced a cue to the villains to take their leave. Toga shyly waved with a promise that she will surely meet with Midoriya next time. Twice just casually jumped into the portal. "Wait, the goal isn't done yet," Dobby announced, referring to Bakugo and Tokoyami, who were still encased in Mr. Compress's quirk. "The basics of magic," Mr. Compress began as he stared at the 3 students, all beat up with a false sense of security that they had managed to retrieve their classmates. He found humor in this as he proceeded to reveal his trick before he took flight. When something is flaunted, then something is hidden behind it. He removed his mask and stuck his tongue out. He really did find the children amusing as their relief morphed into horror, along with the realization of what he just did, of how he managed to trick them. Resting on his tongue were the actual marbles that housed Bakugo and Todoroki. With a snap of his finger, the marbles in Shoji's possession turned into ice. The students were heavily tricked, and they wasted no time to charge back at the villains once more, their last attempt to retrieve their classmates. And sadly, the only time that they were finally able to figure out the secret of his quirk, it was too late. And that's our video, so thank you all for indulging yourselves in our story thus far. I hope you've been enjoying it. Now, there are a few more things I want to go over before the video ends. First, we have a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes deep into the facts and lore of a wide variety of anime. It's sure to expand your weeb knowledge of all kinds, guaranteed. On top of that, we have a third channel called We the Celestials Naruto What Ifs. It's what we do on this channel, but set in the vast world and lore of Naruto. So go check it out if you're in the mood for some ninja action. I'd also like to let you all know, on behalf of We the Celestials, I want to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. If you're perhaps interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, then I want to extend an invitation to join the team. We only have one caveat: be 16 years or older to join our crew. You can find our Discord in the description below. Our Discord is an all-around fun place to be, whether you be a fan or you want to join our band of misfits. All you gotta do is hit up the recruitment server and sign up for whichever category of work fulfills your interests. And with that, that's it for today's video. So thank you all for watching, and please, have a great day.